Hello, and thank you for watching a demonstration of Abila MIP Fund Accounting from Software Simplified. Abila MIP, or otherwise known as MIP, has a full suite of accounting modules to pick and choose from. These modules allow you to address all aspects of your accounting and financial reporting needs. MIP is a native fund accounting product that, through segmentation of your chart of accounts, allows you to track and report on all aspects of your business, including not to be limited to, but including segments like grants, programs, departments, locations, etc. These segments are identified through a discovery process and implementation and configured into your system during implementation. MIP has a reporting package that's very powerful. It allows you to have to utilize templates that are pre-configured and sent with the system, or customize your reports, or even use those templates and customize them so that you can get your reports right where you need them for yourself, for your people, and for your board. So let's take a look. Let's get started and take a look. Right now we're on the main entrance screen, and I just want to point out that Abila MIP has taken an awful lot of time to take their help and documentation, your entire software manual, if you will, along with other things like checklists and frequently asked questions, and put them into electronic format so that they're accessible by the system itself and through the help menu. Even the checklists are workflow oriented: step 1, step 2, step 3 to do accounts payable or receivables or journal entries. So they've basically taken their entire product manual and put it electronically into their system and built it in so that you can use that and you don't have to have these big 3-ring binders on your shelf. So this navigator here on the left is broken up functionally into accounting, admin, administration of the system, payroll, requisitions, HR, and help and support. We're going to start with accounting, and I'm just going to show you real quickly a really fun interface. This is a reporting manager that when it gets turned on, if you look to your right, you have some quick to use reports, and you can even set, this is your financial reporting list and your GASB reporting list, and you can even set up favorites, ones that you run all the time, and just put them into a favorites menu. Also on the bottom right are helpful links, which you can also include web links and other links to the system. MIP comes with canned and customizable charts, obviously. And then of course the help screen, which is where we started. So what I'd like to do at this point is I'd like to kind of walk you through an accounts payable transaction. And the takeaway here is not necessarily the actual process, because the process is pretty generic to all accounting systems. We enter a vendor invoice, we select it for payment, we process it and cut the checks, and then it posts to the GL. In our case, what I want to point out is that the ease of use of this system allows you to quickly enter transactions into the system. And each screen, whether it's accounts payable or journal entries or billing, are all of the same basic structure, so that you don't have to relearn a new screen and where the buttons are each time during implementation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to enter, first I'm going to slowly enter an accounts payable vendor invoice and show you a couple of things along the way, and then I'm going to enter one at what I would call normal speed, what an accounts payable technician might call slow. So what we're going to do is we're going to start an accounts payable session. If you'll notice, this is auto numbered. I'm just going to simply name this test, and we're going to go ahead and start that session. And within this session, or batch if you will, we can have as many vendor invoices that we want. So in this case, we're going to go with this vendor invoice number. We're going to cut it for 1,000. We're not going to cut a check. We're entering this invoice for $1,000, and it's ABC. So it's warning me, by the way, it's warning me that I've already got that vendor invoice number. So you have the opportunity to go back and just correct it. And now I'm going to utilize an allocation or a distribution code that MIP has that we've configured into the system that will spread this expense across multiple grants and multiple contracts and departments if we want them to. It can code to one grant and one contract if you'd like. So you'll notice here that it populates to different funds, different grants, different programs, and different departments. Earlier I mentioned location during my openings comment. This particular organization does not have location in it, but it does have department, programs, and grants. Again, location would be determined during your implementation process and your discovery, and we would add it if we needed to. Now if you're an accounting person, you're going to look at this and you're going to say, but there's only debits. So we would simply click our offset button, which knows in the system knows where to code the credits to. And now it'll configure and populate the credits that equal the debits in here. That's our accounts payable account. So I do want to point out where is the system getting these numbers from, this breakdown and this distribution or allocation. It's getting it from its distribution code, so I'm going to show you one of those real quick. So this one used the general distribution code, and this is the configuration that's done and maintained here. This is all changeable. We can change this along the way, or if a code changes in this distribution, we can go and do that. Now this is allocations at the point of entry, meaning you know what the distribution is. And this tool is to make data entry much quicker, since you would not have to key all of those lines. Again, you can certainly key all these lines, or you can key 100% to one line and then do the credit. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And we're going to go back in, and let's say we went to lunch and we come back and it's time to finish entering accounts payable vendor invoices for the rest of the day. And now I'm going to do one a little quicker. So this is vendor invoice number. Again, this is $750. Test 2. ABC vendor. And I'm going to pick the same distribution code. Click OK, and then our offset, and we've now just entered a fully distributed or allocated vendor expense across multiple programs and grants. And that's it. So that's how MIP treats vendor invoices. And then after that, you simply, it would need to be posted, and then you simply select the invoice for payment and run the checks, basically print the checks. And then after this accounts payable invoice session is posted, we can go in and we can look at that accounts payable aging. And we would just go to our report manager right here, to the analysis reports, and come over to our process manager and look at accounts payables and look at an aged payable. And I'm going to use a pre-configured template. Even though we can customize this if we want, I'm going to use a pre-configured template. So if you'll notice, so the date on here is the due date, obviously. So this is a 30-day due date. So we're at 09867 is the invoice, is the second invoice that I coded. And 456123454 is the first invoice for $1,000 that I coded. So it's a dynamic system. Your reporting is live. It's whatever's going on. And one thing I do want to point out, on all of the reports we had the same functionality. So it gives you the ability to send it to a printer, to look at how the report would look like on a piece of paper, you know, in case you're going to go over on columns or what have you. It allows you to export it to things like CSV or databases. And of course you can send it to Excel, which would create a new worksheet, and it would just send it to Excel. Or you can save it as a PDF. One thing that I didn't show you, I'm just going to close this reporting window. One thing that I didn't show you is that if you wanted to check balances or see if that invoice has been paid already while you're at the accounts payable screen, notice these related tasks right here. Well, we could do a vendor balances, and this is what they call display balances in MIP, and this is available for vendors, it's available for customers, or just general ledger lookup. And so we're going to pick the ABC vendor, and we're going to look at all activity for that vendor in this period of time. And we're going to go ahead and display it, and this will show all the transaction activity, in this case, because we picked all, regardless of whether or not it's a check or an invoice. In this case, I want to look and see if there's been a check cut for this already. So I pick check, and here's all the checks. I can drill down with this plus sign right here, and I can look, here's the accounts payable invoice, and here's the check that was written for that accounts payable invoice. And if the vendor is asking me what the check number is, I would just simply drill down, and there's the document number or the check number, and that's how much it was for. And obviously this is when it was cut. So this is this is a vendor balance lookup. You can also look up things like open activity or closed invoices or any credits. Again, this is available on MIP for vendors, for customers, and for general ledger lookup. So if you're looking at a report and you want to find out what where the balance comes from, you can drill down that way. At this time, I do want to go towards the financial reports, and I'd like to show you the versatility of the financial reports. You saw that the segmentation included grants and programs along with departments. Well, we're going to look at that right now. If we look at financial statements, and we look at statement of revenues and expenditures, up here on the right, it's going to bring up an open list, and these are statement of revenue expenditure reports. The brackets show you these are pre-configured reports, and this is a customized report called a board report. So I call your attention to the fact that it's looking at current period actuals, which the current period is December 1 through December 31, and the current year is the year-to-date actuals. These are general ledger accounts, and these are groupings. These groupings, the general ledger accounts inside these groupings do not have to be in order. The numeric value of those accounts do not matter. You assign those GL accounts to these groupings. So this is a generic profit and loss or revenue and expenditure report. And what I'd like to show you here is the flexibility. That one is pretty much a canned report. But if I wanted to change, let's say I wanted to move current period to the right and the current year actual to the left, I simply move these two around and I look at that. So now you'll notice that the current year actual is on the left column and the current period is on the right. The other thing I'd like to call your attention to is that the header shows that this is a report for the Health Appeals Grant. So the 101 Health Appeals Grant, this is the revenue and expense report for that. If I change pages, you'll notice the grant will change to 201 Housing. This is the 201 Housing Grant, and the 301 Child Welfare, and so on. So I point that out to you because the flexibility in MIP not only allows you to manipulate columns to the format that you want, but it also allows you to report on the grants themselves, or if we were to go into a customized report and we remove this grant code up here on the top, we would now look at a consolidated report for the revenue and expenditures. So this is an organization-wide, because there's no header up here showing you a grant or department or program. And this is the entire organization's consolidated revenue and expense report. And then finally, just to point out that it doesn't necessarily have to be grants. We can do it by program as well, or let's say department. So let's look at the department, and we're going to see a different look, but it's going to have the same type of header with designating that it's a department. So in this case, there's some spending that's not related to departments, but here's the administration department, accounting, and etc. And once again, I can simply remove that and get a consolidated report, the same one we had a moment ago for the entire organization. And I'm doing this on the fly. You can configure these and then save them and lock them so that no one can change them. So only you can edit these. Other people can copy them and build on that, but they can't change the report that you spent a lot of time configuring and customizing. One other point I want to make is that down on the bottom you can see that this tab here is the configuration portion of the report, and these are the different reports that we've run along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'd like to show you that was a revenue and expense report, and I'd like to show you a balance sheet report as well. So this is a general balance sheet report. And this is just an organization-wide balance sheet. This is showing beginning year balance, current year, and change. There's no pages because it's consolidated. But if you were tracking your balance sheet by a grant level or even a fund level, then you could simply come into here and track your balance sheet and show yourself a balance sheet by fund. So if we look at that same balance sheet, it's showing the operating fund. If I change pages, it will show the state grant revenue fund. This is good for things like deferred revenue and cash balances or payable balances by each fund. Again, this is regardless of what cash account's being used. So this is a balance sheet. And again, you have all the different options here on the columns that you can use: percentage of change, year-to-date change, etc. So the other item I'd like to show you is what we call, I'm just going to close this here. It's what we call a combining statement of revenue and expenditures. It's not behaving today. And this is a combining statement of revenue expenditures by program. So this is a P&L basically by program. Each column is a different program: healthcare, social services, food services, etc. But if I don't want to look at the program revenue and expenditures, and I do want to look at, let's say, by grant, I simply edit it, and I come into the content, and I change this to grant. This is how easy and customizable it is. And I make sure that we set this as a column. And we run the same exact report, which has the same exact data. It's just being presented to you in grant format. And again, I'm going to repeat myself. I'm doing these on the fly, but you would do these once and configure it and then save it and lock it so that nobody can change it, and then all you're doing is changing dates along the way. So this is a grant-based revenue and expense report. What we call a combining revenue expense report. This is also available for balance sheets as well. Before I move past the financial reporting, I just want to bring you back to, because some people like to see their budget information on there as well and compare their budget information. So what I'd like to do is just bring you back to the statement of revenue expenditures. This is a general statement of revenue expenditures. And I just want to bring you back to the one that we started with, which was the board report. And there's a couple things I want to point out. Again, this is the flexibility of the system and the customizable nature of the reporting module. So this is the general, the board level with the health appeals grant. This is the revenue expense, and if we change pages, it'll change grants. What I'd like to point out here is I want to look at the budget that was assigned to this. So I want to look at the year-to-date budget, and I want to look at the year-to-date or the total budget rather, and then the variance. So I'm going to get out year-to-date budget. And what you're going to see is your actual spending by current period, which is the month of December, your current year total, the budget of $173,000, and whatever the variance is. And this is how easy it is along the way to customize these reports. And one last thing I just want to point out, if you're interested in knowing what's inside one of these accounts, it's very simple just to use this drill down function, which then drills down into the individual accounts. So if we wanted to know what was inside this, what made up this 22,000, we could look at the current period, and then it'll tell you the different modules that have posted to that and what's inside those modules with the individual coding. So this is a good drill down function for all the financial reports, for the financial reporting that happens with MIP. So this is a good review of the MIP financial reporting. Again, the different categories within the financial reports are adjustable. So you can have the different groupings for personnel costs. You can add and take away any of the GL accounts that you want. They're not necessarily specific on a header account that has a numeric value, and you have to have everything within that numeric value. What I'd like to do now is just point to and show you a couple of the other reports that are available, and I'm just closing this down to give a little screen space. And so the other reports include vendor lists, things like vendor lists, customer lists, allocation codes, depreciation codes, etc. These transaction reports are very powerful in that they allow you to drill down and look at the hard detail, even down to the level of who coded it, when they coded it, posted it, and what workstation posted it for an audit trail. It's got a solid audit trail. Your analysis reports include other reports like AR analysis, of course your AR aging, customer information, fixed assets, bank reconciliations, budget analysis, and PO analysis. So I spent a good amount of time talking about the reporting and the accounts payable transactions, more so because that's the most common. That and accounts receivables are usually used the most by the technicians. But also we have all your basic transactions like journal vouchers. In accounts receivables we have all of the different invoicing functions, whether the system prints the invoice or you generate an invoice off system that includes other metrics that are not available in the financial system. MIP allows you to do allocations after the information's been coded or your transactions have been coded. What that means is if you don't know what that distribution is or the allocation is, then you could simply code it into a pooled account, and then at the end of the month, the quarter, or week, you could simply run an allocation code that would remove it out of the pool and distribute it across the different segments as needed. MIP has a very solid budget worksheet system that allows you to key in a worksheet format all of your budgets or just pieces of your budget. Of course, you can import them as well. It's got encumbrance functionality, fixed assets, which include depreciation using distribution or allocations, meaning that it will calculate the depreciation, track it, you can attach images, and you can distribute that across the different grants, or one grant for that matter. MIP has a purchasing module that allows purchase orders that flow into the accounts payable module, where you would create an accounts payable invoice receiving that purchase order. Along with purchasing, MIP has the option for electronic requisitions, which is for individual like department users that are not accountants would have a module loaded on their workstation where they would request purchase requests, electronic purchase requests, or EREC, and that would go through an approval process and end up as a purchase order in MIP, and subsequently an accounts payable invoice. MIP also has a sales order entry, which is more like, I would say, a point of sale, but it's more about recording revenue transactions in the system. GASB reporting, report manager, and charting. MIP Payroll is an extremely powerful payroll system that integrates both with the general ledger and Abila HR. The payroll utilizes a what we call a timesheet, default timesheet and regular timesheet configuration. So the timesheets are set up in a way that you enter default timesheets that include the recurring time that they work, employees work, the different benefits and deductions that are taken out of that employee's pay, and typically they're set up in organizational format that allow you to have recurring transactions every single pay period that are the same. And then during the processing period, you go into your regular or supplemental timesheets and adjust them. So if the individual gets a little bit bigger deduction, or he or she's hours change, or distribution code or allocation changes, you would manage that during the actual pay period. MIP also utilizes e-filing for your federal and state taxes. This includes 1099, W-2s, W-3s, 1095s, 94s, and then your state reporting. Most of the federals are done electronically, and the states where it's configured. This is done with a relationship with Atrix reporting. and they'll file it or let you print them and send them in. One thing I do want to point out in the payroll system is the payroll system uses the distribution codes we spoke about to distribute individuals' time across different programs. So if you have an executive or an individual that has his or her time allocated proportionally, it's the same every time, you would simply use a distribution code. Otherwise, the time entered for an individual would be coded each payroll to each individual program, and that's done using also distribution codes. So MIP Fund Accounting is an extremely robust and functional system. It's a native fund accounting system that has the ability to segment your chart of accounts into grants, programs, departments, etc. And this is just to mention a few. Really, it's during implementation. The power of the implementation is that we can identify for you the different segments that are needed in your organization, so that it ends up being easy to use. It's very quick to ramp up and learn. It's got a solid, powerful reporting tool that utilizes both templates and customized reports. MIP is a solid fund accounting system. It's easy to use again, and it's highly respected by your auditors with a solid audit trail. We definitely encourage you to consider MIP. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to contact us. Please feel free to contact us at Software Simplified. That's softsimp.com, and you can see the number on the screen is 209-229-8370. That's 209-229-8370, or softsimp.com. If you go to the contact page, there's an actual web form that you can fill out, and we'll get back to you just as soon as possible. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching. We look forward to working together.